Dr. Sertima, Professor of African Studies at Rutgers University, is also visiting professor at Princeton University. He is the editor of the Journal of African Civilizations. Recent books he has edited include Blacks in Science, Ancient and Modern, Black Women in Antiquity, Egypt Revisited, Nile Valley Civilization, African Presence in Early Asia, African Presence in Early Europe, African Presence in Early America, Great African Thinkers, Great Black Leaders, Ancient and Modern, and Golden Age of the Moor. Dr. Sertima has lectured to more than 100 universities in the United States and has also lectured in Canada, of course the Caribbean, South America, and Europe. He appeared before Congress on July 7, 1987 to challenge the Columbus myth and continued to do so at the Smithsonian Institution, November 1st, 1991. So I'm very proud of him. Okay, would you join me in welcoming my husband, Dr. Sertima?
Now, I am attempting today a very difficult subject. Difficult because in the history of the world there has been very little concentration. Because of male chauvinism, there's been very little concentration on the achievements of women. The record is scratchy. The most voluminous record, the most complete record lies in Egypt. There is Isis. Isis was an African god. I'll come to that in a moment. She's a creation god. She became a goddess among the Europeans. She was a goddess not only in Africa, she became a goddess in Greece, she became a goddess in Rome. Even the mad Emperor Caligula made the African woman Isis, African goddess Isis, a goddess among the Romans, even in the British Isles, even Paris. How do you get the name Paris? Paris is Isis, the place of Isis, the African goddess. It was the fact, even in parts of Asia, you had the worship of black goddesses. Because the Africans in that early period understood that woman was not an extension of man, a mere extension of man, but that she could stand as an equal. Therefore, their concept of God was man and woman, male and female. God was composed of Isis, the woman, and Osiris, the man. God is a complement of male and female. Therefore, they did not refer as the Europeans he, she. In some African languages, you do not have he, she. You have one thing. Like when I was studying Swahili, I was surprised. I was saying, well, so how do you say he? He read asoma. She read asoma. Means both he and she. You have to put root asoma or root anasoma to say whether it's a man or a woman reading. They do not put the masculine, feminine definition into the verb. And they do not carry. Many of the Egyptians never carried this kind of idea that God was man, he this, he that. We stuck with that because we've been trained by Europeans. God, to be really the substance of the universe, must have a complement of the male and female element, because that is what is the making of the world. Those things cannot be separated. You cannot have the creation or procreation of the human without the male-female. It is a complement. It may be contrasting, but it's complementary. This is not so when European patriarchs began to write Genesis. We do not dismiss the Bible. I'm a Christian. But I have to make it quite clear to you that the creation story of Adam and Eve, it's something that the patriarch wrote down thinking God was talking to him. Because how on earth could you have man first? Man is not as physiologically competent of all the milk and everything that creates the child. She carries the sperm and transforms it into human. Therefore, you can't have a man born first and then God said it is not good for the man to be alone, and then he takes the rib out of man who's already physiologically not as complex as woman, and he's going to take a piece of man to make woman when it is woman you take to make man. So those ideas were not in Africa. Egyptians could not conceive of anything like that. Therefore, man and woman had to be seen as a complement. Therefore, God had to be both Isis and Osiris. He couldn't be now God decides to create a male, and then it suddenly occurs to him, that's not a great idea, let me make a female. Those are very serious things, you see, because they create deep in the psyche of man the idea that women are just an afterthought of God, something to be dealt with afterwards, the little woman, the old lady. All those ideas develop into societies, creating all sorts of incredible problems, so that when the woman eventually seeks to reclaim her equality, it leads to incredible tension. Nothing at the moment in the world leads to so much divorce as a woman trying to be real and to be true. Because the tension created by having a cultural expectation, a cultural training, that women are X, the man carries this, he's socialized into thinking this. Therefore, when the woman says, I am not X, I'm X plus Y. Problems. So I want you to be aware that this thing has roots in the very early development of man.
If you live by yourself, you don't have to worry about certain laws, except you must obey the laws of nature, because that will determine how long you're going to live. But the moment you start living with other people, you must have what? Something that governs how you are going to relate to each other. Because if you have no laws and you are lawless, then no one is safe. So in the case, they bust each other in the head and took things from each other. But no problem. I was strong enough to take it, so I took it. You wanted your woman, you must do it. I was strong enough to do it. No, I'm not picking on them now. You look at their recent history. I brought you over here and played you, took your woman, bastardized you, did everything because I was strong enough to do it. And that makes it right. God willed for me to do it. You ought to thank God that I did. It was these Ethiopians who created bodies of legislature which later became known as the Senate. Do you know what the word Senate means? The word Senate, as we have it in this language, comes from the Latin Senata. You know what it means? Council of Elders. Council of Elders. What does Dr. Williams say in the Destruction of Black Civilization? That everything was governed in our communities by the African constitutional system, which consisted of the Council of Elders. I didn't say the United States Constitution. I didn't say the French Constitution.